Hi, this is Larry Galloway with Let's Talk with Larry. Today I'm here with Alise White, Straight Talk. And Alise, would you tell me a little bit about Straight Talk?
Straight Talk with Alise White is a channel where I deal with issues that are very hard and difficult to talk about. A lot of times people don't want to deal with situations honestly, and that's what we do on my channel. It's Straight Talk, S-T-R-A-I-T, not G-H-T, because S-T-R-A-I-T means difficult with effort. So we're going to talk about things that are difficult to talk about, that require effort and honesty.
Awesome. From time to time, me and Straight Talk, we get together with Talking with Larry, and we will have some deep conversations. We're going to speak truth, what we see as truth, and we're going to try to keep everything real. So whenever you on this channel and you see us talking and you have questions and stuff, you can always go into the comment section, send your comments. We're going to read your comments and we'll get back with you the next time around. Alright, today our conversation is going to be on how you deal with grief. Okay, so grief is a very strong emotion. Grief, the emotion comes from most of the time a loss, like someone dies or something. But grief also comes like if you had a cheating spouse or something, and a bad kid, or somebody call you and say, the doctor, and he'll say, well, you know, I got a bad report for you. So we grieve, like you might say, I got cancer, I got 3 months to live or whatever.
Right. And
grief comes. And it's a very strong emotion. A lot of people think that grief should last a certain period of time. Could you elaborate on that?
Sure. Everybody is different. You can't say who should grieve which way. Everybody has to grieve in their own way. Sometimes some people can get over a disappointment or a loss very quickly, depending on what it is. And then sometimes it takes a while, depending on what your triggers are. For instance, if you were a child that was neglected all of your life and you always felt abandoned, if you have a situation where you lose someone significant, whether it's a best friend or whether it's a spouse or a boyfriend or girlfriend, and they leave you for whatever reason or the relationship doesn't work out, you might grieve more or more intensely than someone who didn't have that baggage of abandonment. So you can't say that. Everyone has to be allowed to grieve the way that they need to grieve.
So for each section of the grief that we want to speak on, first we'll speak on like the divorce side or the cheating spouse side, because you know grief comes with you get those sad feeling, you get angry, numb, the emotion comes, you confused. Sometimes you feel guilty like it's your fault.
Right.
When it might not even be your fault, but that grief is there.
Right.
So how do you deal with that part of it though?
Well, first of all, with you could have the same sense of loss from a relationship that's not from a marriage or a partnership. Like if you have a good friend.
Right.
If you have a really good friendship with someone, because that happened to me. You have a really good friendship with someone and you feel like you're sisters, and then they leave you, or they decide for whatever reason that the relationship, things happen in a relationship that makes it no longer mutually beneficial, or they're not supporting you the way that they used to, and the relationship is breaking down. You're trying to fix it. Hey, let's talk about it, and the other person is not interested. And you finally come to the realization that they don't want to have this relationship with you anymore with that intensity. And you have to come to terms with it and say, do I continue to pursue this relationship with this person? Do I let it go? You have to assess the situation and see if they really want to be in a relationship with you. You can tell from what it was before and what it is now. And you have to let it go. I had to do that with several friendships because I could tell that it wasn't going, it was no longer the way it was. So there was a tremendous grieving that went with that, with the loss, when you have someone who sits in your heart.
And they feel like they betray you, kind of.
Sometimes it feels like a betrayal, because especially when they won't open up and talk. If you have a relationship where you are open, you have open communication, you can talk about anything, you can be as honest as you want to be, there's no judgment, you can really be free with your emotions and be vulnerable. And then all of a sudden, somewhere along the line, the person is not receiving those messages. The things that you say start to irritate them, or they take offense to it, when previously there was no offense. That becomes a hard lick, because then you're wondering, did I do something? What happened? What's the trigger? What was the thing? And if you ask them and say, what was it? Was it something I did? And they don't open up, or they don't want to open up about it, then you're left with, they no longer want to have that relationship with you, and you have to go through the grieving process to let it go.
Right, and you have to separate yourself.
Separate yourself.
You have to continue to live on, go through that grieving process, and get back in the ball game.
But can I say something else about,
sure.
when we talk about a spouse, that can be a really deep lick, especially if you're really being faithful and going all the way in.
Like being really committed.
Being really committed to the relationship, really trying to build, all relationships have challenges and issues.
Right.
But you have to be able to communicate. If you can't communicate, you're going to have a problem, right? So when you have these issues in a relationship and you try to talk it out and they don't want to talk it out, if you were talking about it before and then you're not talking about it now, that's a signal. If they were spending time with you before but they're spending less time with you now, that's a signal. So maybe there's someone else. When a person brings another person into their relationship, you can tell it, because the way you're being held by your partner is going to be different. There's always something that changes whenever you start, the other person in a relationship starts bonding with someone else.
Right.
And so you might not be able to put your finger on it, but it's there. But when you have that, having to let go of a committed relationship with a spouse, it is hard, because you have to start thinking, well, what did I do? Is it something I've done? But sometimes you can't. Women do that a lot.
Right.
We internalize it. Was it something I said? Was it my hair? Was it my makeup? Do I need to lose weight? No, you don't. It was them who wanted to do what they did. People make choices.
Right.
Nobody makes you do that. It's never it just happened. No, it didn't just happen. You had to plan the place. You had to communicate. You had to intentionally get together. You had to take your clothes off. You had to take steps. It didn't just happen. Like I bump into you.
Right.
That just happens. Intimate betrayal doesn't just happen. It's planned.
Right.
So when that happens, you have to be honest about it and don't take on the other person's, take on the responsibility for their actions. That's where a lot of people go wrong.
So when you go through that situation and you hold in the unforgiveness
For a time.
and that brings forth more grief
And
more anger,
Yes.
you really grieving in because you can't let go. It's like that unforgiveness make you won't let go of the situation. So do you heal faster when you forgive and just move on?
Well, it's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a process of you doing the work of really looking at yourself, because sometimes the partner that is left sometimes does have a part to play in the other person leaving. I mean, if I'm nagging constantly at my spouse, I'm never giving any praise. I'm always talking about what you didn't do. I'm always downing him about, all the negatives. There's never any praise or any positive. I'm not nice at home. Then of course I have something to...
Like you pushing away.
Pushing him away. So you have to first go through my opinion. Totally my opinion.
And that's what we're speaking on. We doing straight talk, right?
Straight talk. You got to do your own self-analysis. You got to look at the situation honestly. Look at their personality. Look at how you were before you got together or during your dating period. What changed? Did you change? Were you less intimate? Were you less understanding? Did you stop wanting to do fun things? Did you all of a sudden no longer want to go out? You've got to look at that. But if all of those things are intact, you find where the breakdown occurred. And if it occurred because they just had a hunger inside of them to be with other people, you can't fix that. Because there are some women and men who need a constant supply of validation, of praise, of the fun, of the interest, of the initial relationship where your stomach is all butterflies. They need that constantly. In a real relationship, long-term relationship, that's not what happens.
No.
You have that, you learn each other, you get comfortable with each other, then you get into the daily, where you start to continue to learn about each other, but appreciate each other. You have spats and arguments, but you settle them. You say, okay, baby, this is what I felt was wrong with that. Work it out.
Yeah.
But when you're not when either partner is not willing to work it out, there is really nothing you're going to be able to do about that. That person, if they're not committed enough to you to work through the hard part, it's better to help them pack a box, open the door, and say later days. Because you're going to live, I'm sorry, you're going to live in misery. Running after someone who doesn't want to be with you, it is best. Pack your things. Baby, you need help packing that?
Can I
everything you
Can I drop you off somewhere?
What can I? Everything you own in the box to the left. Let me get the door for you. Let me, because you can heal at that point. Pour energy into yourself. Take time to nurture yourself, whether you're male or female. Take time to nurture yourself. Replenish yourself. Feed life into yourself. Find a partner, somebody is your friend that can breathe life into you, to walk through that journey with you, heal, and focus on what you want to do.
Yeah, because the more you chase that person, if I'm constantly chasing her and she's acting the fool, she ain't doing the things that you say. She always saying no in bed. She ain't doing the things she used to do before we got started.
Right.
And it's like I'm chasing you, saying, "Come on, let's do this. Come on, let's do that."
Right.
I'm grieving myself because of that situation.
Absolutely.
So it's best.
Rejection.
Yeah, it's rejection, and you know how the scriptures say about rejection. You know, we religious or Christian people.
Absolutely.
So of course we base everything on the Word of God.
Right.
Right. So check this out, though. We got other kinds of grief. We was talking about relationship as for a man and woman, but what happens when you lose? Like you lost your mom, your dad, you lost
somebody significant in death.
Because that kind of I feel like that's the final grieving. Some people say be strong. You don't have to grieve. You don't have to cry.
No,
but I feel like grieving is the final way of showing, hey, I love you. The final act of love is you grieving for the person you lost. Right. How do you think on that?
I think it's true. I think sometimes you have the ability to process your grief before the person passes. And before my grandmother passed away, I knew she was declining, so I spent a lot of time with her. I loved on her. We talked. So I was going through my grieving process while she was still alive. Right. So when she passed, I felt a sense of peace because I had an opportunity to really love on her while she was here. You know, it's like giving the flowers while she's here. But I had a situation where I had a nephew who passed away very suddenly. That was different. That one was harder because it was so sudden and I didn't get a chance to say things I would have wanted to say. So that grief is always in my heart because there were things that I never got to say, things that we never got to do. It was just cut off. So it's an everyday walk to where you love that person, you remember the good times, and you accept. I don't think there's ever a way to fully get over the loss of someone. You learn to live with it and appreciate the memories.
Yeah, when I lost my nephew, you know, I lost my mom, my grandparents, and that was hard. Don't get me wrong. It was very hard, you know, because we were a close-knit family. But when I lost my nephew, it was like, oh my God, like it was harder for me to bounce back.
Why?
Because it was
it sudden? Like,
it was sudden, okay, and then it was like a different kind. You know what I'm saying? Even if he had been sick for a while and I had to spend more time with him, it's still my nephew, like a son almost, you know, because I have no children in that town, so it was like a son that I never had. Right. And it was like, oh my God. But you had to do different things because we got a close-knit family, so you still have to be there for the parents, the siblings, and my other siblings. Right. You know, but that was the hardest thing I ever went through in my life. And
youth has something to do with it too.
And
because youth, you're young.
Yeah,
you know,
young.
It's like,
but it's like sometimes you think that you're over it, and even with my mom and my grandparents, my parents, whoever I've lost, it's like sometimes you feel like, hey, okay, I'm comfortable, I'm able to go on in life, but then it's like 10 years later, it punches you in the face and it feel like yesterday. Right. Can you elaborate on that?
I just think it's just a journey of life. It's just part of being human. You can't ever get over the grief of losing. It becomes less profound in that the stabbing of the heart is not as great, but it's still there. There's the woulda, coulda, wish I had done this, that, or the other.
Right.
But there's no perfect. There's no perfect goodbye. I don't think.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
You try to prepare yourself, even for the ones like you were speaking of that's sick. But when they leave, it's still like you just took a part of me.
That's right.
You know, it's almost like cutting your arm off, or you just taking a part of you, and you can't get it back.
But you know, I think that's the wonderful thing that makes us human. That's the thing that makes us connected to people. That makes that so valuable. Is that we have those deep connections, so that there is a loss. Because think about it: if we didn't have loss when people left us or died, what would that world be like?
Can't grieve at all.
There's no grieving. It's just okay. It's like my shoe wore out. Okay, just put it in a bin over there, and that would make humanity less human.
Yeah, and I hear some people do say, "Hey, well, everybody's got to die. Everybody's got to leave here. Nobody going out alive."
Those are people who say that, who have no connection to the person that passed, or they had hatred or some kind of animosity against that person. Because if you truly love someone, you're gonna grieve. That's just part of being
human,
a soul. Yeah, right. Whether you believe it or not.
So, scripturally, what does Scripture tell us about grieving? How do we get over that grieving?
I think the biggest thing for me has been my connectedness to Yahweh Elohim. You know, when I went through the last devastating marriage, the separation of that, I had to spend a lot of time in the Word, a lot of time in prayer to get through. Because I never intended to marry the second time. That was not something that I intended to do. But I was pursued, and I was persuaded, and I believed in the words of that person. So it was I never intended to just go out and seek a second husband. And so when you have that kind of devastating loss, when you put a lot of energy into it, you have nothing else but him to rely on. People can only say so much to you, but when you seek the Lord, you seek Yahweh, you seek his presence, that's what got me through, because he loved on me. He opened doors for me. He comforted me when I was sad. He was just there. So that was the only way that I could get through, and that's the way I look at my life now. Any problems I have with anything, I go to him. I talk.
He tells us to cast our cares upon him,
and that's what I'm saying. I don't really talk a lot about my problems to other people anymore. Right. I talk to him. Maybe every now and then I might let something slip, or I might talk to somebody, but very seldom, because I'm learning to rest in him, abide in him. He promised he would meet our needs, he would be there, and he would never leave us nor forsake us, and that is a true statement. I live on that.
He said he'll see us through. See us through. He won't sit in heaven and hear us call upon him and not answer.
Now when you serve him.
So we have to, when we grieving, and what we are going to do, anytime we lose.
That's right.
Anytime it's a mass separation that you had no intent of, you know, and we're going to grieve. And we might grieve a long time. We might grieve, like you say, it might be different for different people, for different situations. You know, if one of your co-workers die, you grieve for your co-worker, but you don't grieve for your co-worker like you grieve for your son.
You don't.
Or you grieve for your wife, or whatever it might be. But we still have to, in any situation, cast our cares upon him.
Absolutely.
You know, I remember whenever Moses, I want to say Moses, when his wife died, he told me 30 days. Am I speaking correctly? Was that Moses?
They used to, I was reading about, I think when Jacob died, and they did normally have grief for like 30 days.
Right.
Yeah, that was their custom then.
Yes.
So, but they had their time of mourning. Different cultures have different times of mourning, so it could be whatever. I don't think that we practice in the United States any set time of mourning, but it's just whenever you just walk your path. Nobody can tell you how to grieve.
That's exactly right. That's the whole point here today on Let's Talk with Larry.
All right.
And Straight Talk with Alise. Nobody can tell you how to grieve. Nobody can tell you how long to grieve. It's a choice you have to make. I mean, you'll get comfortable with it sooner or later, and you'll stop being affected in the world again and moving on and doing different things. But no one can tell you not to grieve. No one can say, hey, don't cry, be strong. Baby, cry and be strong. Cry, get it out.
Get it out.
How you going to tell me don't cry, be strong? Okay, I'm the one that just lost. Did you lose? I want to see how you react when you lose in the same situation. But I won't go up to you and tell you the same thing, don't cry, be strong. I'm going to tell you to cry. I'm going to tell you to shout. I'm going to tell you to do whatever you got to do. I tell you, because grieving will make you go back and do things that you never thought you would do again, you know. But we can't keep it in us because some people die from grieving.
They do.
You ever heard when they say they die from a broken heart?
Absolutely.
What you think of that?
I think it's a real thing. I think it's a real thing. I think that grieving from a broken heart can kill you.
It will.
It can definitely kill. It almost killed me, but I was like, can't go that road. It was a lick, and I went through something to get through that one. But it changed me because that's a scenario that'll never happen to me again. Because there's a part of me that that won't allow it. Because you don't put so much into another person that you can lose yourself so much by them not being there, or by them leaving you. I've even heard of women and men who've lost their minds over relationships. No. Nah,
I feel like not over.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead and turn my camera down. Just kick it all off. That's great talk right there, doing some damage. But over a child is different than in a relationship.
Yeah, but I still say you gotta rest in the arms of Yahshua. You can't. You're not capable. You're not able to carry yourself through that. You can't. And if you try and you do it, and you're walking by yourself and you're not asking Him to sustain you, you're gonna mess up. You're gonna lose faith. You're gonna hate Him. You're gonna hate God. You're gonna
blaming Him for situations.
You're gonna start blaming Him. You're gonna go to drugs or alcohol or whatever, and you're going to maybe even destroy yourself in the process. So,
because I'm a witness on that, because I hadn't drunk something like for 20 years almost, or maybe 15 years, I'll say. And when all that grief came, it was like I got to get this pain somehow. I couldn't even operate the way I used to operate for months.
Yeah, sometimes.
But I couldn't tell nobody because we was all close knit, so we all have to be there one for the other. But grief is real. It's no pleasure. People have to be there for each other when they're in grieving, and you, like Alise said, you can't handle this by yourself.
Can't.
You have to call on the name of the Lord. You have to truly have a relationship in Him and with Him, and believe that He will carry you through.
He will carry you through.
Yeah, because He said,
I'm a living testimony. May endure.
Weeping may become for only a night.
May endure for a night.
Yeah.
But joy comes in the morning.
That's right.
Doesn't it though?
Don't it?
Don't it? It does.
Our morning is here.
My morning's here.
But that's not going to say we ain't never going to grieve again. Hey, go to the bottom of the page, subscribe, hit like, share with your friends. Let them know about Straight Talk with Alise. Spell that Straight Talk again, please.
STRAIT.
And Let's Talk with Larry. And we're going to get more people on here. We're going to start giving information that people really need, because the word is hurting. At least I'm getting ready to close out. Is there anything else that you would like to tell the people out there about grieving?
Only thing I want to say is that you have to have faith in the Almighty Yahweh Elohim, or you can call Him God or Jesus. You got to have that to hold you. If you don't have that, you don't have anything, because you can't do it yourself. It's not possible.
Not possible.
Not possible.
Not possible at all. Hey, it's been a pleasure. We enjoy y'all. God bless you. We love you. See you next time.
Absolutely.